Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Universe podcast. I'm your host, James, and I'd like you to join me this month as we go through what I have done. We don't have an interview this month, so it's just me, which is good because I actually have done quite a lot this month, and I wanted to not go too in depth, but I rewatched Obi Wan Kenobi. A little spoiler for later on in the episode, but I wanted to go into that in a little bit of detail and have a conversation about that. But we will have our usual feedback towards the end of the show as well. Without further ado, we'll crack on with what I've done in Star Wars in the last month. This will probably be slightly more in-depth than it normally is. I normally just sort of hit the highlights and sort of the high-level strokes of it all. But yeah, I'm going to start off with games, and I have obviously been continuing my Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes playthrough. That's the wrong word, really, isn't it? It's a daily grinding game. It's a team building game, and this month I have finished my Galactic Legend Rey Ultimate Move grind. That's done. All 10 of those battles have been completed. It's tiresome. It is tiresome on the Ultimate grind, but it is worth it in the end. I've been able to use it a little bit already, and I have thoroughly enjoyed being able to use it. It does make a difference to a lot of battles, and it's made a lot of different game modes a lot easier with an at full strength Galactic Legend. That'll be my third in the game. The other ones are the Sith Eternal Emperor, also known in some circles as Gucci Palps because of his transformation, as well as Jedi Master Luke Skywalker from the Battle of Crate. How he appears, it's sort of him from The Last Jedi, and his transformation is into sort of the more powerful Luke Skywalker vision that appears on Crate to Kylo Ren. Speaking of Kylo Ren, I have fully unlocked Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, my next Galactic Legend, and I've got him up to Relic 7, which is the highest I can take him at the moment. Or highest I'm willing to take him at the moment. I can go all the way up to Relic 9 if I really wanted to, but I don't want to right now. So he's sitting at Relic 7 and he's onto his ultimate grind. So another 10 repetitive battles. Just need to get in, do what I need to do and get out again. There's nothing more to it than that. We have Conquest running at the moment where I am pushing hard. It's the hardest I've pushed over the last couple of months because the reward this time round is Darth Bane, who I really want to unlock as quickly as I can. I'm not going to get him at the end of the three conquest cycle, which you can do if you hit the max tier, because I can't hit the max tier at the moment, which is fine, but I should get him probably month 4 or 5 of his release, which will be good. We've just had Boss Nass and the Gungans introduced to the game, which has been a lot of fun. Yes, he does do the Jowl Wibble as one of his moves, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's one of the very few times I've actually turned the sound on for the game, and I must admit I sat there and laughed for a good several minutes, put the game on auto, and just every couple of turns he would just give it the and it brings a smile to my face every time. So I do thoroughly enjoy that. I've been enjoying the game a lot recently. The game developers, Capital Games, have done a really good job recently of listening to the fan base and giving what they want, as well as tweaking things and making some quality of life changes. It's a good game. It sometimes feels overwhelming when there's a lot going on certain days, but it's a good fun game. I've also recently been picking up the Star Wars trading card game through Topps, the mobile game. I've never really given it much of a chance before. It's been sat on my phone for probably a few years at this point, and I pick it up every now and again, and I go, oh, these new cards are out, that's cool, that's fun, and just never put it back down and pick it up again 4 months later without really a care in the world. But I've really got into it this time round. There's a number of great sort of collections of cards they're doing. The artwork on it is really, really nice. It's not just stills from the movies or shows or cartoons or animation or whatever. There's a lot of actual art in a lot of the cards, and those are definitely the ones that I'm drawn to. There's a lot of sort of concept cards from Visions, as well as there's one that I'm sort of focusing on at the moment called Color Blocks. And it's really simple designs, and they're really, really nice. We're on Wave 2. I've managed to complete Wave 1 in-game, and yeah, I think I've got one more card to collect for Wave 2, which is good fun. And just sort of trying to figure out how the game works. I've always liked trading card games, physical and digital. As it turns out, I didn't realise the addiction quite spread to the digital one, but it does apparently. I'm quite interested by the Star Wars Unlimited new trading card game that's physical, that is coming out, believe, the day this episode drops, actually. So who knows? It might make it into the next episode a little bit. Might do a little talk about that and what it's like. Really enjoyed the trading card game, and if you're a fan of trading card game and collecting and things like that, then it's a really good substitute for the physical media of it, and it's a really easy way to not spend real money. Trading cards are, or can be, certainly a very expensive hobby. Just looking around at the value of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are out there, as well as some historic Star Wars stuff as well. There's got a lot of value to them. So it's interesting. You get in-game currency, which you generate for free every hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. And you get a chest every 4 hours, I think. You can utilize real money, but you don't have to. You can generate in-game premium currency, which are crystals. They look a little bit like kyber crystals. You can generate that for free, so you can play the game free to play, or you can play it pay to play. Either or. The Topps Star Wars trading card game has been a lot of fun, and I am enjoying it, and it's quite quick as well. Like, as I was saying a minute ago, it can feel quite daunting when you've got to log in and you've got to spend an hour doing something in a game, like there is at times with Galaxy of Heroes. This is, you can hop on and off 10 minutes at a time, and it's very quick and it's very easy. So I really, really recommend that if anyone does like a trading card simulator. That's about it for games, really. I haven't had a chance to play any Fallen Order recently. Life has just been a bit busy, and so I haven't been able to get back to it. I do hope to change that for the next episode, because I was really enjoying my playthrough. And yeah, I hope I can get some more gaming in. I do love Star Wars games as a whole. There's whole different genres, which are great fun. I'm not very good at most of them, but that doesn't take away the fact that I do enjoy still having a go. I like to be part of it. Turning my attention to comics. I've done some reading. I've done a bit of reading, actually. Read Thorn Alliance #1. There's not really much to say about it. If you've read the book, you've read the comic, really. You just get pictures along with it. It's a very faithful retelling. It's a good book. So I always had faith it was going to be a good comic as well. And it is. It is. I love Thrawn. He's one of my favourite characters, always has been, from first picking up Heir to the Empire many moons ago. But yeah, it's a good book. I can recommend that for definite. Revelations #1. This one, I didn't really know what to expect from it, and I guess it kind of was what I expected, of just a lot of short stories. It was a perfectly fun comic, and it sets up sort of lots of other stories and where they go, and how they start more than where they go. It was good fun. It was a fine read. Not essential, so I would recommend it if you enjoy that sort of short form storytelling. But I don't know if I'd really recommend it. It's not essential. You can miss it. Then, after having a conversation with Henny Hobbs over at Source Pages, she was reading, this is a little spoiler for her update, is she's been reading Kanan, The Last Padawan. And I must admit, I got a little bit of FOMO, and I thought, I haven't read that. It's 12 issues. Yeah, why not? Let's go. So I picked up all 12 issues and got to sit down and read through them. Really enjoyed it. It bounces around between current day, in air quotes, for the Rebels, which is after they've met Ezra and before they meet the Grand Inquisitor. It's that sort of period, very early on in Rebels, and they're on a run, and where they're going provides Kanan, Caleb Doom, some flashbacks to Order 66 and his life after that. So I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this run. It got me to spend a bit more time with Depa Billaba, who is Kanan's master. And I know that there was a lot of noise after Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 1 came out, because they changed the contents of the comic, and technically they should both be canon. They changed the place of where it happened. Overall, exactly the same thing happened, so I don't have an issue with it. I can understand the frustration, because we have been told by Disney several times that everything now is canon. Everything released by Disney is canon. But I really enjoyed the comic run. I would highly recommend it, because it delves into Kanan's backstory and why he is the way he is an awful lot more than Rebels could with a larger ensemble cast. And it does actually make me want to pick up A New Dawn. I believe that's by John Jackson Miller, who is also writing The Living Force, which is due out later this year, which I'm very much looking forward to that one. Reading through this comic run, it did make me stop and think, because I have a lot of Star Wars information in my brain, and I do often get confused about what's canon and what's legends. And I genuinely, reading through this, I couldn't remember if Depa Billaba was still in canon Mace Windu's Padawan. And I think she is, having had a quick glance at the Google. I think she is still considered, which makes it interesting, as I really like the lineage and the heritage of Force users in the Jedi, as well as the Sith. The Sith is obviously a lot easier to follow, master apprentice. But the Jedi, because you've got so many different branches of it, I really like seeing the web that it creates, and the fact that you can trace Ezra back to Mace Windu and see how the different teachers have got from Mace Windu, who's very stern, very by the book, as it was presented in Tales of the Jedi, down to Ezra Bridger, who is Ezra Bridger. He's kind of the Aladdin, isn't he, of Star Wars, and even through to and where the crossovers happen as well. So, like, obviously Ezra was partially trained by Ahsoka. You can track Ahsoka and even Sabine, who is now officially Ahsoka's Padawan, all the way back to Yoda, with Sabine trained by Ahsoka, trained by Anakin, trained by Obi-Wan, trained by Qui-Gon, trained by Dooku, trained by Yoda. I love that connectivity within the universe, and it's always made me happy. I would highly recommend the Kanan comic, 12-issue arc. You can read it in probably 2 hours. But speaking of reading, stroke listening, I have got a couple of books under my belt this last month as well. I started and finished the novelization of Rogue One. It's a faithful retelling of Rogue One. I don't really know what else to say, much like Thrawn Alliance. It doesn't add huge amounts. There's nothing groundbreaking that I noticed, like Rise of Skywalker novelization had, or Episode 3 novelization had. There are some which really add some really key elements to a story. This didn't really have that. This was very much a faithful retelling. There's a little bit of extra in people's minds, but nothing really jumped out at me. It was a very faithful retelling, and it was fine. It made me want to go back and rewatch Rogue One, which I guess is a good thing. I haven't seen Rogue One for a little while. I was hoping to try and get a movie rewatch in this month to talk about, but it just hasn't quite worked out, unfortunately, time-wise. But I think Rogue One might be on my rewatch list. The other book I've been reading, I'm about 2/3 of the way through, I think, is Dark Disciple, which is, anyone who's kind of up to date with Star Wars will know that there is an appearance in the Bad Batch Season 3, which, at the time of recording, I've only seen the first 3 episodes. Episode 4 hasn't yet come out, so I don't know when this person appears, but they were in the trailer. And so Dark Disciple was a very appropriate book to be consuming at this point in time. And I will be doing a in-depth review of this book on source pages, the Spark Jedi Council episodes that they do over there, which I'm very proud to be a part of. And we will go into more detail on Dark Disciple and how it interacts with the Bad Batch and things like that. And it'll be very interesting to see how it does. I know what happens at the end of this book, which is a little bit of a spoiler, which I'm a little bit annoyed about, although saying that, I find it difficult to be annoyed about a book having been spoiled for me that's several years old at this point in time. It's kind of more on me to have read the book before now. I just haven't, and so if I get spoiled on something, that's on me. But I will say, so far, as I say, 2/3 of the way through the book, I am absolutely loving it so far. It's a fantastic book. There's a lot of different approaches that I hadn't expected to see in Star Wars. There's a lot more sexuality and sexualization of characters, which I really wasn't expecting in Star Wars. But it's done in a very tasteful way. It's done in a very appropriate way. It's a very, very good book, centered around Quinlan Vos, who is obviously mentioned in Obi Wan Kenobi and appears in Episode 1 in the background. And he is sent to assassinate Count Dooku by the Jedi Council, which is very non-Jedi of them. And he's sent to find Asajj Ventress to help him. I won't say any more about the book. It's all I'll say is I am very much enjoying it at this point in time. And keep an eye out for the source pages episode where we'll go in depth on that book. Coming to sort of the core part of this episode is really going to be my rewatch of Obi Wan Kenobi. It's my first rewatch since first consuming it, and I haven't rewatched it. I've just sort of sat with it in my head. I enjoyed it, really enjoyed it first time round. I think I had some weird criticisms at the time. It was things like the lightsabers look like they have light tubes on them rather than in the prequels. They just look different. They look like they're made of light. They look like the solid part is very thin with a glow that comes off it, which kind of gives it a little bit of body. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So episode 1, Obi Wan Kenobi, episode 1. Fun episode. Get introduced to all the main characters. You get Obi Wan Kenobi, where he is cutting up a carcass in the desert, which, given the fact it's taken them several days at the very least to cut up this thing, I bet that is not smelling great at this point in time. You get introduced to Leia Organa. You get introduced to the Inquisitorius, and those last two, Leia Organa, what a character! Like we obviously know where she ends up, and the journey she goes on to get there, with the exception of a 30-year gap between Jedi and Force Awakens, and played to perfection by the late great Carrie Fisher. But this time round, obviously, we went for a 10-year-old version of Leia. Yeah, I will say that the actress who plays Leia Organa, whose name is Vivian Lyra Blair, did an absolutely incredible job. She absolutely, for me, nailed the 10-year-old version of Carrie Fisher. Yeah, she was absolutely brilliant. The chase scene is terrible. I'm just going to put it out there now. It's not good. The fact that 4 or 5 grown adults get outsmarted by a 10-year-old in terms, not by speed. No, 10-year-olds are fast. But the tricks Leia used to escape them, it was just not well choreographed. But that is really my only criticism of Leia the entire series. Like she's 10 and she's been kidnapped and she's sassy. She's Leia Organa. She asked too many questions. It was great to see Jimmy Smits return as Bail Organa. I recently encountered him on a rewatch of Sons of Anarchy. Forgot he was in it, and he turned up, and I was like, "Oh, it's Bail Organa." That was fun. One of my biggest problems with the entire series, and please hear me out before I say this, is Reva, played by Moses Ingram. When she is on her own, she's a brilliant character. Really, really good. As soon as she is placed in the vicinity of other Force users, she, for some reason, just becomes weak and petulant and stroppy, and it just destroys her character and any momentum she gets, because all of a sudden you can clearly see that she's not the strongest. And it's not about, oh, she's not the strongest, but she's the smartest. Like, she gets outsmarted by most of the other Inquisitors, certainly by Vader, certainly by the Grand Inquisitor, and by Obi Wan Kenobi throughout the series. So, yeah, I really struggled because I spent an awful lot of time with Reva really liking what I was seeing, and then there were just scenes where, as I say, all of the goodwill she'd built up in the previous entire episode or half an episode or whatever was just undone in a moment by one of the other Inquisitors just besting her. I really like her backstory. I like the fact that she was an Inquisitor to go after Vader for revenge, and that kept her going for so long. But as I say, coming up against Vader, she's never gonna best him. But I would have liked it if she could have at least done anything to him. But instead, maybe that's unfair. Like Vader, this is Vader at his height. So there's enough Anakin left in him in this series to forgive Obi Wan Kenobi, which again, jumping ahead. But there's not enough. There's too much Vader. There is too much Vader in him at this point in time, and Vader is at his peak. Vader is terrifying. But anyway, let me get back to the episodes. Episode 2, not huge amount happens, but it adds a lot of lore and it brings a lot of other players and characters into the fold. And you get to meet Kamal Nanjiani's character Haja, who is a great addition. I love the fact that he is pretending to be a Jedi and is actually a con man, but he's actually still a good guy. I like it. I love that. As a side character, I wouldn't want it to be my main character, but we get to see quite a bit of Order 66 from Reva's perspective as well in this series, which is great fun. Great fun's probably the wrong turn of phrase, but it's it's really interesting and really good to see it. Moving on to episode 3. This is the episode that really sort of cemented it, really, for my view of Reva. Her introduction, I think, is really terrible because she just cuts across and makes herself look really silly and petulant in front of the other Inquisitors and to the rest of the people in the bar, with like, they're saying, right, we're going to do it this way, and then she just jumps in and goes, no, I'm going to use violence. It's like, you're not there in the pecking order, and she gets reprimanded for that. Being 10 years into the Empire and into the Inquisitorius being a thing, I would have expected that to not have happened, really. It's like saying, someone's been in the army for 10 years and they still act with a lot of impulse and a lot of emotion. For me, it just wouldn't happen. Not in such a non-necessary environment. Like, they're looking for a single Jedi. There's 3 of them, two Inquisitors and the Grand Inquisitor, and they don't know Obi Wan Kenobi is on this planet. So it's not even it's a no-name Jedi that never gets named. So frustrating. But in episode 3, that continues. There's moments of good character development in there, but as I say, it's very prevalent in the first few episodes where she's quite petulant and things, and that's really highlighted. So it's for me bad episode 1. Episode 2 does really well to present her as a threat, where she finally snaps and obviously runs through the Grand Inquisitor. Then episode 3, she's sort of trying to make a play for the big chair, and the 5th brother just handles her. Like, it's kind of like, well, you've just proven that you're not the strongest. The dark side rewards strength. You're not the strongest, so how can you possibly lead? But you then have episode 3, we get our introduction to Vader, who you get snippets of it beforehand. Vader's great. Like, that's just a blanket statement. Vader has been great for years. There's very few, certainly written, comic adaptations of Vader which I haven't enjoyed. But here, that really translated. That took comic Vader and put him on the screen and put Hayden in the costume with the voice of James L. Jones. And you get to see, like, behind the suit as well, which is great. We've never really got to see that live action before. We've seen snippets of it. Empire and Rogue One show it. But this really shows it all, pulls the curtain back. And he's terrifying. He's absolutely terrifying. That scene where he is after Obi Wan Kenobi and he's yanking people out of their houses. He is snapping necks with the Force. Absolutely terrifying. Start to finish. Intimidating. Everything Vader should be. How Obi-Wan gets away from him, a little bit hit and miss for me. But I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. And obviously they get Leia at that point in time, and she is their prisoner. Now, going into episode 4 really, really highlights what I've sort of said about Reva. And I was sat there watching it thinking, am I missing something? Is she meant to be like this? And I think she was. And for clarity, I don't blame Moses Ingram for this, but it was this one that sort of started to highlight it. I don't think it excuses like the petulance of her, but she is highlighted as just being considerably weaker than the other Force users. And the petulance will come from that. Maybe it's a level of annoyance that she can't be as strong. Or maybe she can't be as strong because she hasn't fully embraced the dark side. And there's a lot of sort of canon reasons that I can use to justify the way the character is. I just don't think that story was told properly. If I'm trying to fill in the blanks in the way that I am, they haven't told a story properly, in my view. Episode 4 of Obi Wan Kenobi is pretty much wholly set at the Fortress Inquisitorius, which as a name I love saying, and I'm very much looking forward to when I get there on Jedi Fallen Order and seeing it in the middle of Obi Wan Kenobi was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. I really loved how Obi Wan Kenobi he's doing all of this stuff without really using the Force because he's kind of pushed the Force away for so long. And he's doing all of this, and then he suddenly has to use the Force. And when he has to use it, it is there for him, but it's hard. It's hard for him. But when he's sneaking around the fortress and he's dodging the tracker droids, and he then comes across all of the Jedi who are either held in stasis. Are they held in stasis? Or are they embalmed and just held there as trophies? I know we get the old Jedi who had that couple of episode Clone Wars arc with Ahsoka, keeps his lightsaber in his walking stick. I can't remember his name. A beloved character. I really want to know who the others are. I need a visual dictionary or an art of book for Obi Wan Kenobi, which goes into that detail and showing who these Jedi are, and then maybe a comic run or something, a series of short stories about the encounters and who actually took them out, or how they ended up there, because that can only add character development, fear of the Inquisitorius, and respect for the various Inquisitors. And if it turns out that Reva is responsible for several of those, then that's only going to benefit her character, because it's gonna create an element of danger to it. So yeah, I'd love to know who the fifth brother took out, if anyone. I would have loved to have seen the ninth sister in live action. We see a couple of others floating around, but nothing major. It's mainly fifth brother, Grand Inquisitor, and Reva are the three main Inquisitors. But yeah, that's kind of my big note from episode 4 is who are the other Jedi. You've got a brilliant hallway fight scene. One thing I really did notice in my rewatch is this show doesn't hold back from showing you some stuff. Like, you just see stormtroopers just floating around in that tunnel. It's quite clear that they don't have respirators in their helmets. You see at one point a stormtrooper get knocked off a ledge and fall onto a laser shield and literally get cut in half. It's quite. I was quite surprised with the level of brutality on show for a Star Wars show, and I enjoyed that. I did enjoy it because it wasn't gratuitous, and it was always appropriate. Going into episode 5, my notes here actually say that Reva is at her best here until Vader makes her look really weak and stupid. And Vader does that to everyone. Thinking about it now, I made that comment straight after watching it. Those are my immediate thoughts. And I meant it. Reva was brilliant in this episode. And actually almost to the point where I was like, this is the Reva I wanted from the beginning. And then she goes after Vader. And it was just laughable how he toyed with her. But that's not anyone's fault. That is no one's fault. That's how Vader should be portrayed. He is Vader. He is Anakin Skywalker turned to the dark side. The suit actually limits his power. So he should toy with people. He should make people look silly. So that's not a negative on Reva. She really hit her stride in episode 5. But Vader showing his just raw power was absolutely unreal and really, really good fun. This is the episode where it opens with Obi Wan and Anakin training. So we've got Space Jesus Obi Wan, which was glorious to see again, and we've got Padawan Anakin. And this confused me a little bit, because I often think about the continuity of things, and if there is an issue, I don't necessarily mind pointing it out. I'm not going to dwell on it. If there's an answer to it, great. If there's not, fine. But this was one of those moments where I was looking at them training, and I like to look at the lightsaber hilts, and Anakin has Anakin's lightsaber, which he doesn't have in episode 2 at all. And yet, in this training scene, he has both of his arms. So I don't know when this was set, because if it was as the Clone Wars were kicking off, or having early on in the conflict, he shouldn't have an arm. But before that, he shouldn't have his lightsaber. He had a different one, which gets cut in half with Geonosis. And there's a whole running thing through Attack of the Clones of, this weapon is your life. You must guard it and treat it as such. And he keeps losing it. So he doesn't build that lightsaber until probably the Clone Wars have begun, because he certainly doesn't have it on Geonosis. He's chucked a spare one by when Yoda arrives. No, sorry, not when Yoda arrives. When he's chucked a spare one when Mace Windu interrupts the proceedings. Says the great line of, "This party's over." Oh, I love that film. That might be what I watch this month. I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm going to do a poll. That's just a little side question I have. But Leia is great here. And she really came into her own in this episode for me, and she was great, with the exception of a very, very bad chase scene. She was brilliant the entire series. And the fact that I don't have anything really to say about her, she's just there and does her thing. It's kind of everything that needs to be said about it. And going into the finale with episode 6, I honestly didn't know if we were going to get another Anakin Obi-Wan duel when it was first coming around. I hoped we would, but I didn't know for sure. But yeah, my first thought is obviously we open up with, we close episode 5 with Reva finding the holoprojector, the mini communication holoprojector, which was dropped by Haja, and seeing the message from Bail Organa about the other child and it's Tatooine and blah, Owen Lars doesn't hear Lars, hears Owen, and she obviously knows Owen from when she was lost on Tatooine in episode 1. My question is, obviously, we have a very Last Jedi scenario where the transport is trying to escape with the air quote rebels on it, including Obi-Wan and Leia. They are being chased by the Empire Star Destroyer, firing at them. Very opening of A New Hope, very Millennium Falcon in the asteroid field, very Last Jedi. But the question I had there was, all of a sudden we just cut to Reva is on the planet's surface, quite seriously injured, discovering this hollow projector. The ships are already in space and being chased. We open episode 6 with Reva on Tatooine. Now, I know it's not going to be that far, but how has that happened that quickly when this chase is still happening? And it's like minutes have passed over here, but like, what, an hour has passed elsewhere? We don't know how long, obviously, hyperspace travel is between the planet they were on and Tatooine, but it felt very quick. But yeah, it comes back to she is, and it moves. She's there for the reason of plot, for the purpose of plot. But we do get this great moment where Owen wants to run into the mountains and hide with Luke, and Aunt Beru just goes, "No, we are going to fight." And she starts pulling out guns, and it's just like she is ready to throw hands, and I love that. I was not expecting it on my first watch through, and it brought a smile to my face on the rewatch. I was just really not ready for it, and I really enjoyed it. Haja, his character development through the series is great. I really enjoy that character, and I hope we get to see some more of him in the future, or at least get some more stories with the character, whether that be comic or book or whatever. Obi-Wan versus Vader 3. It's not Mustafar, but it's certainly number 2 of their 4 battles, and I would put Death Star as dead last on that, where Vader finally wins. But I also put that down to being a product of its time. Stunt coordination was not what it is today, so it's a good second. It's a good second for me. You have Reva at a point where she can take out her anger and take out Luke, and she chooses not to, which is great character development for her. Episodes 5 and 6 for Reva really redeemed a lot of the issues I had to begin with. I did find during the sort of the homestead invasion that she probably should have dealt with Owen and Beru a lot quicker than she actually did, but familiar with the terrain, high ground, there's a lot of high ground instances in that battle. I can kind of let that one slide. Does she get redeemed? That's really the big hanging thread for Reva. I'm glad she wasn't taken out. I'm glad that she has the opportunity to come back in the future. I do think we can do a lot of good storytelling with her as a character, and I'm glad that she exists in the universe for sure. We get to see Vader's castle in all its glory. We get a cool cameo by Big Papa Palps. I really enjoy Vader's castle. There's a moment in the Darth Vader comic series where you just find out what Vader's castle was built on, and that's pretty cool. There's an old Sith Lord who was completely benevolent. You get a lot of time on Alderaan in episode 1 and then episode 6. God, that place looks beautiful. Really, really nice. It's a shame it got destroyed. And then we get the final cameo of the series, being Liam Neeson returning as Qui-Gon Jinn, finally appearing to Obi Wan Kenobi, taking him off to become the hermit we know and love in episode 4. I love the fact that Liam Neeson was able to come back and have that moment. I know he's done some stuff, voice work for Clone Wars and various other bits and pieces, but I'm glad he got to come back. I do like Qui-Gon. I do like Qui-Gon a lot. But yeah, that's kind of the bulk of my episode this time, is to talk through my rewatch of Obi Wan Kenobi. Overall, I would definitely recommend this series. I really enjoyed it. You've got good lightsaber fights, you've got redemption, you've got forgiveness, you've got Anakin losing his mask, or Vader losing his mask and showing Anakin. You've got beautiful lighting, storytelling. It's not just physical storytelling or verbal storytelling, it's visual storytelling as well. You've got some great locations which are new and old. You've got little relationships, like I didn't even mention the Jawa that was stealing Obi-Wan's parts and then selling them back to him, and she just gives him a little jibe of, you could at least clean them first, and the Jawa replies with cleaning costs extra. Like that's just good writing. I had some problems at the beginning with Reva, but by the end, I think she largely recovered and overcame a lot of those issues. And I look forward to seeing where the character goes next. And I hope Moses Ingram comes back. But if we have to tell those stories in comic book or novel form, then so be it. But yeah, overall, I would really, really recommend the Obi Wan Kenobi series. It adds an awful lot. It helps if you've seen just the main films, really. Other than that, you don't really need to have seen anything else. There aren't any characters popping up that are sort of nods to anyone else. There's a couple of things mentioned, like Quinlan Vos is mentioned, as I said earlier, talking about Dark Disciple. Quinlan Vos is mentioned as helping out, so we know he survives Order 66. That's pretty cool. Outside of that, a lot of it is just good Star Wars. Anyway, sticking with TV for now, I also have watched, as I mentioned earlier, the first 3 episodes of The Bad Batch. Very, very high level. Episode 1, great to have them back. It's a very Omega heavy episode. In fact, it's a solely Omega episode. It has a bit of Crosshair in it. Episode 2 goes back to Hunter and Wrecker. Obviously, the finale of season 2 removes Tech from the board. I'm not going to say permanently. I'm determined that he is not gone permanently, and I really hope that is the case. But if it's not, he went out good. And Echo decided to go and join Rex for a bit. I'm sure that will come into storytelling later on in the series. So it rebuilds the world a little bit and sort of updates us on where everyone is. And episode 3 is a really good episode. We're spending a lot of time on Tantis, or at Mount Tantis, and mentions of Project Necromancer, which has been mentioned elsewhere, as well as M-Count, again, mentioned elsewhere. And it's a really, really good start to the series. I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. And I'm sad it's ending, but I trust them. It's probably the right time. Probably is the right time. We will see. I was very interested that they, in the episode 1 recap, bring you back up to speed with everything, they mentioned the Zillow Beast. So I'm interested in that. I know that was sort of alluded to in terms of Project Necromancer, which is quite clearly the Snoke and cloning of Palpatine stuff. There is a vault. Who's in the vault? What's in the vault? I don't know. I hope we find out. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to it. And to finish off my month in Star Wars, I've collected some toys. I do like my toys. I've managed to pick up a Black Series Spirit Yoda, Force version Yoda, my first ever Black Series piece of memorabilia. And I very nearly bought Darth Malak as well, and Darth Malgus recently, but I managed to hold off a little bit. I did also pick up a Santa Yoda Funko Pop, which was on sale, because obviously post-Christmas. And that was going to sit in its box, in another box, until next Christmas, where it will probably sit on my Yoda shelf for the festive season. And I also picked up some Journey to the Force Awakens trading cards, which are centered around New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Having looked through, I don't think they were actually the set I thought they were, so I might move them back on, I don't know. But as I said in quite a lot of detail at the beginning, Star Wars trading card games, I do like trading cards, and so we'll see where that itch takes me over the next few months. Never interested in playing. I've always just been interested in collecting. Yeah, if I can just pick up one of each card, I'm a happy camper. Really, it's good. But that's been my interactions for this last month of Star Wars, and so turning our attention to what you guys have been doing. And so I put out a request for some feedback from you guys. And firstly, we have Hayley Hobbs, Source Pages, previous guest on the show, who has had almost as busy a month as I have. On the audiobook side of things, Hayley has read The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, Resistance Reborn, and the Rogue One novelization. And her comments on these are, enjoyed all of these a lot. Listening to the movie novelizations are like letting the movie play in your head. I know exactly what you mean, Hayley. Resistance Reborn was a good side story between The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker that I think is worth listening to. I have an issue with Poe Dameron. I always have. Don't like him. Never liked him. Probably never going to like him. I will give that a go because of your recommendation, Hayley. It will be, it's on my list of things now to listen to, and it will be quite high up there so I can actually see if I enjoy it or not. In terms of ebooks, so actual physical reading, she has read The Force Awakens, The Eye of Darkness, and has started A New Hope. And the notes from that one is loved The Force Awakens because it's my favourite of the sequel trilogy. That's potentially a controversial take there, Hayley, but normally people argue between Last Jedi being the best or the worst and Rise of Skywalker being the worst or the worst. No one really gives Force Awakens much attention, to be honest. But I'm glad it's your favourite. Really glad it's your favourite. It's probably, I don't know. I mean, I might need to have a separate conversation about what my favourite is. It seems to change quite regularly. And finishing off with The Eye of Darkness was a really strong start for the High Republic Phase 3. I completely agree. If you are a fan of the High Republic, I would definitely say get out and read The Eye of Darkness. It's brilliant. Comics-wise, Crimson Reign, 5 issues. That was a great little 5-issue run. It expands far beyond those 5 issues, but that initial core run is some really good Star Wars. The High Republic 3, Phase 3, number 1, Kanan, 12 issues, as I said earlier, inspired me. And the High Republic Phase 3, Shadows of Starlight, number 1 and 2. And the notes of this are: enjoyed reading more of Kira and post-solo activities. Really like the Kanan run to get his backstory and a side quest for the Ghost Crew. And a strong start for the High Republic Phase 3 comics as well. Completely agree. Completely agree with all of those. Don't have anything else to add. Thank you for the time you've taken to send that in, Hayley. And I look forward to welcoming you back on the show to discuss some more Star Wars in the not-too-distant future. And I also have from Hayley that her husband, Nathan, has read Rise of the Red Blade and started the Alphabet Squadron books. And they have both loved The Bad Batch first 3 episodes. Great that Nathan's getting in on the act. I'm really pleased that he's getting into Star Wars novels and things like that as well. And it's absolutely fantastic. I look forward to hearing more from him in the future. We do have a voicemail from Brian Klein from Source Pages as well. So here we go.
I finally got my PS5 from my parents, so I've been playing a lot of Jedi Survivor, read some of the High Republic comics, and then obviously got a bunch of Hasbro and Funko products that were out. Watched the premiere of The Bad Batch and also did a rewatch of the Gendy series.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. What's the Gendy series? I may have misheard that. Don't know. Let me know. But no, it sounds good. You're always reliable to be picking up some stuff. So it's Funko and Vintage series, was it this month? So yeah, no. Glad to hear it's all going well and you're enjoying Jedi Survivor by the sounds of it, which I will hopefully get to at some point if I can ever finish Fallen Order. And I might just end up watching the 4 hours worth of cutscenes on YouTube again. We do also have feedback from the last, but most certainly not least, Spark Jedi Council member, Todd, who has been reading Fate of the Jedi Ascension, and he's got caught up on the High Republic Phase 3 comics, and he's watched the premiere of The Bad Batch. And looking at everyone else's feedback, we have Darth Ridiculous, who is Josh Hoyt, friend of the show, past and hopefully future guest of the show as well, who has said that he's picked up 2 Grief Karga Black Series figures in honour of Carl Weathers. That's a lovely little touch there, Josh. Really, really nice. He's rewatched the last 4 Bad Batch episodes to prepare for Season 3, and at the time of sending me the message, he couldn't wait for Season 3, so I'm assuming he has watched them and has probably enjoyed them. But Josh, let us know. New contributor to the show, Dan Griffin, at DanGriffin21 on Twitter. He said, after listening to the latest episode of the show, I went back to rewatch Rogue One. Brilliant prequel to A New Hope with the added bonus of Mads Mikkelsen as Galen Erso and CGI Grand Moff Tarkin. Also attempted to get back into Galaxy of Heroes, but was struggling to start from scratch. I hear you on the Galaxy of Heroes. I did reply saying that there is a lot of speed to the very early game now, whether that be free or paid for. It's a really good game, and so if you did want to continue with it, I am part of a guild in the game that is quite welcoming of returning or new players. So if you wanted to reach out to me on Twitter at Star Wars UPod, then by all means do so, and I'll see if we've got any space at the moment. Going back to your other stuff there, Dan, it's Thank you for listening to the latest episode. First off, it's appreciated. And he's come back and rewatched Rogue One. It is a brilliant prequel to A New Hope. It's a fantastic film. Added bonus of Mads Mikkelsen. Mads Mikkelsen is always great. My only issue with Mads Mikkelsen being Galen Erso in Rogue One is that they killed him. And so we no longer can have Mads Mikkelsen. That's my one negative on that. But the fact that he's in Star Wars as such a pivotal figure, as the creator of the defect in the first Death Star, I love it. CGI Grand Moff Tarkin, I am unfortunately going to disagree with you on that. I found that incredibly jarring throughout the cinema, and exactly the same with Princess Leia right at the end as well. I found it incredibly jarring, and for me that technology peaked with Luke Skywalker in the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. But I am very, very glad that you enjoyed it. Had a conversation recently with Brian, Haley and Todd, where Brian shared a picture of Grand Moff Tarkin from Rebels. I think it was Rebels. Must have been Rebels. It's a scene where we only ever see him from the waist up, and the caption says, "So how do we know he's not wearing animated slippers?" Very famously, Peter Cushing found the boots too uncomfortable, and so did a lot of his scenes on the Death Star in slippers, which is one of my favourite pieces of Star Wars knowledge, I think. And we had a various conversation about how in all of our headcanons, Grand Moff Tarkin is always wearing slippers. Unless you can actually see boots, he's wearing slippers. And I obviously contributed with hopefully pink fluffy ones, because why not? And going over to a comment on an Instagram post, Kazamaka, who is Karen, who has been contributing to the source pages Timey-Wimey Talk, the Doctor Who-centric podcast they do over there now, said, "I've been catching up on the previous season of The Bad Batch, which I'd fallen behind on." Thank you for that, Karen. Hopefully you are fully caught up and are enjoying season 3. So thank you, everyone, for all of your feedback this month. It's been really appreciated. I hope you enjoyed this solo episode and the slightly more in-depth thought analysis of my rewatch of Obi Wan Kenobi. I also hope you enjoyed the special episode I released to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the very first Star Wars podcast, Jedi Talk, which premiered on the 7th of February, 1999. I have been thinking about doing another special, which will coincide with May the 4th. So there'll be the usual episode on May the 1st, and then there'll be a special episode a few days later on May the 4th. And for that, I am looking to sit down with as many people as I can. 5 to 10 minutes per person. Doesn't have to be in depth. Very, very broad stroke, as I say. 10 minutes per person. And so if you want to be a part of that, reach out to me. You can either contact me on Twitter at StarWarsUpod, or you can contact me by email. The email address is starwarsupod@gmail.com. And I would really appreciate if anyone who wants to have a quick chat with me about it and then put it all together into a special, to a bit of a love letter to Star Wars on Star Wars Day. So yeah, that's going to bring this episode to a close this month. As I say, always appreciate the time people take to contact me and to engage with me about the show. And we've got our regular contributors, Haley, Brian, Josh, Todd, then I do really, really appreciate you, as well as everyone else. Obviously, Dan and Karen, first timers this month, I really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll come back and contribute more in the future. At this point in time, I will just give a quick shout out to the other Star Wars related podcasts that I listen to. I highly recommend you go and listen to them as well. So we've got Children of the Watch, Forced Ghost Conversations, Galactic War Report, Source Pages, a reading collective, Star Wars 7x7, Star Wars Splash Page, Star Wars The Saga Continues, and Starlight Beacon Transmissions. All of those podcasts are really, really great. And they all cover slightly different things as well. So you get quite a wide variety of Star Wars information about a lot of different things and a lot of different types of things as well. Definitely give them a go. That's it for me this month. But if you wouldn't mind going and wherever you're listening to this, give it a like, give it a subscribe. And we are also on YouTube as well. Star Wars Universe Podcast, YOU Universe Podcast on YouTube. Give us a sub and a like. And if you wouldn't also mind leaving a review, that'd be really appreciated. And it does get noticed. and it does help the algorithm with growing the podcast as well. If you wouldn't mind doing that, again, very much appreciated. Thank you very much, and until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.